things bug me. One, really, man, aircon at the back. Why don't have? It's not that hard to make. I am feeling a little bit warm at the back. Now, it doesn't bug me as much. The reason is because my rear is never used. Okay, that sounded very wrong.
Can we just get through one video without this?
We didn't ask him why is he trying to prove himself?
No,
It's not our business. If it's used or not used, I don't want to know.
Let me rephrase. Yeah, we're in a Subaru Forester 2-liter IP.
What does it stand for?
Ip Man.
Ip Man.
I think there's, you know how a lot of car companies are sort of doing the family look, the family feel kind of thing. In this, you get the same thing. It's between an XV and an Outback, but it definitely feels a bit more like the Outback than the XV. Even though it has the XV's powertrain, 2-liter boxer engine with a CVT.
Because it's bigger lah, heavier.
I don't know what they do because the power output is exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah, my first impression of this car, I have a soft spot lah for Subaru. Not Subaru in general, but the Forester. I actually like this car from way back, the previous generation, the previous generation. They always have this sleeper look to it, where tuners would tune a 2-liter boxer turbo. And
they sort of hit upon the crossover SUV look way before anyone else.
Correct.
Yeah, they did.
I don't think it was a crossover back then. It was actually a genuine wagon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a fat wagon.
Sporty wagon.
It was a sport. It was a wagon with a sporty heart. It was weird and it was out of this world, and everybody loved it. Well, not everybody. Weird people like it lah.
Enthusiasts lah.
Enthusiasts lah. It has a very good image to it because it's at the same time very professional. I don't know why. Maybe it's a name or it's a Forester. I take care of the environment.
I gotta say, for Japanese cars, they are probably the sturdiest and feel the heaviest.
They feel the most European of all the
those are European traits.
You are right. What about you, Howie?
I was very impressed by the suspension. The steering feels smoother, for lack of a better word. I was at the back and it's a lot more comfortable compared to the XV. Only complaint I have is
there is no aircon vent.
There's no aircon vents here, so Wolfgang is actually sweating.
No, I'm not sweating but on a very reasonable aircon speed, I actually feel nothing at the back. There's no aircon feel at the back. It's an issue that Subaru really need to look at.
Yeah, because they've got the luggage compartment exposed to this compartment as well. So they're cooling the entire volume of it.
Yes, you're right. Let's talk about performance.
When I first got in, I felt this was very close to the Outback, and I reviewed the Outback before we started doing videos. And I found the Outback was very... it was my favorite car to drive long distance.
Really?
Yeah, and you could go... You have to censor this, but you could go 100 kilometers per hour on the highway.
Really?
And not feel like you're going 100.
Shit.
Really? It's so comfortable. 2.0.
Jeremy Clarkson had very good things to say about Outback, right?
Yeah, he quoted it as the perfect car.
When I got in here, I was expecting, this is just going to be a very fat XV.
Yeah.
But it felt like a very thin Outback. The moment I started going on the highway, I got that feeling again. Because I was going 110 and the RPM
cruises,
just cruising so nicely.
And this I have to ask you, being all-wheel drive, being obligate all-wheel drive, wow, what a word, obligate all-wheel drive, doesn't it consume more fuel?
Yeah, as you can see, we just started driving and only one bar is gone. I would gladly pay the extra, 400, 500 ringgit of petrol a year to get this kind of nice feel. It's so smooth, it's like butter. Seriously.
But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I think it's my turn to talk about the performance. At 1.6 plus ton, a 2-liter engine producing how many horsepower? 150.
150, I think.
150 with it. To be honest if you drive like a normal person on a very reasonable driving behavior, it's good enough. It is responsive enough. The gear change is smooth enough. The engine is smooth enough. Power and torque delivery is adequate, but it's not immediate. So if you want to get into a very sudden burst of power, there is no such thing, which is the only thing that I really think turbo would have solved all this problem. a very light charging turbo would have given you a bit. It's not about how much power you can give it. Sometimes you want to overtake a car in interstate highway.
Pulling power.
Yeah, you need a pulling power, you need immediate torque. Contextually speaking, again, if you're comparing with competitors, none of them has that immediate pulling power lah. Unless you go to European offering. I say this because if you've driven interstate highways, sometimes you get a row of 2 or 3 lorries and some idiot cars in front of you that doesn't know how to overtake lorries. And you can stay behind them and run 60 kilo an hour and get to your destination 8 hours later. Or you can overtake them, and to overtake them safely, and this is very important, safely, you need that power. And it keeps on reminding me that this car cannot deliver under that circumstance.
That's true.
But other than that, if you're driving around city, which is a bit ironic because it's called Forester, but if you're driving around city like a normal person under very normal driving condition, the car delivers as much as you can expect.
Well, I agree with Boa. It's not very powerful, and you have to wait for a while for the power to kick in. But I suppose most cars in this segment are like that, no? But I don't have much to say. It's very similar to the XV, but more refined. It doesn't feel cheap. There is no indication of cheap, with the exception of the plastic parts. It feels a bit wobbly here and there. This thing here moves.
Yeah, this thing
this
feels like a tower that
should not move. Those are minor things. The major things, the steering feel is very smooth, very tight, almost European, very heavy. Suspension is awesome. I love it. I think this is a very good daily driver.
Yeah,
very good daily driver car.
So let's talk about looks, exterior and interior. So let's start with looks. Maybe Subhash, why don't you start again?
The looks, I have to say, it looks fairly European. Of course, the family look has now been injected into this car. So they all look the same right now, don't they? But it looks like a shrunken down SUV at times. So like when I look at this, I see the proportions of a Ford Kuga.
Of a wagon?
I don't know. It's lost some of its wagon.
Okay. Oh, you felt that it lost some of its wagon?
Yeah, the Forester that we grew up
we grew up.
That was a wagon, yeah.
That was a real wagon. Right?
Yeah, it was a wagon, but it felt like it was like in that crossover stage where it was gonna get a bit
becoming
bigger.
a crossover.
Yeah, that was the genesis of crossover.
Yeah. My only real complaint is that the industry is focusing too much on hexagonal grills. So.
Back to the hexagonal
Mini,
grill.
Hyundai, Ford, Aston Martin, okay, they're excused because they sort of started it.
But what is the next step, man?
I don't know, they're just gonna add more and more angles. Next is octagonal.
When you arrived with the car just now, I was very, I was taken by the lights. It's, what do you call it?
So much bling, daytime running lights.
Yeah, daytime running lights. The Audi also have like something like that.
Yeah,
xenon lights, right? You call it?
Yeah.
Basically, there are 4 clusters.
The lights are like that. So I felt that was quite European in a way, because I'm very afraid of that when the Audi pulls up behind me on the highway and it comes with these lights. I get a phobia.
Howie has an irrational
I have
fear
a phobia of Audis coming back from the back and then just like ask me to pull over, and then with like they have this daytime running lights like this. Yeah, it's traumatizing me actually.
I wouldn't say it's a good looking car. It's a very distinctive looking car. The only problem I have with the exterior looks is a bit busier. It's a little bit messier than its European counterpart, but it doesn't look as, how should I say, dressed up as the Japanese. The Japanese looks very dressed up as their SUV. European SUV looks a bit more honest, but cleaner than this. This is a little bit too busy, especially just now, like what you said, when he came and picked us up. I was looking at the front and how many DRLs do you want to put in the front? You want to put some in the bonnet also, make it neon blue. But I have to say, image-wise, I like the image of driving a Subaru Forester. It has a very professional image to it, but at the same time not too, not too uptight like how Audi look. I can imagine a lawyer driving this car. I can imagine a contractor driving this car. I can imagine an engineer driving this car. I also can imagine a film crew producer driving this car.
Yeah, you're right.
Everybody can drive this car and portray a very healthy and very professional image that is not too uptight. This car has a very respectable image, but not over the top. I don't think it's a handsome look because I think it's too busy. It's too many things going on. It's chiseled, but it's too busy.
It's too narrow for me. It's too narrow and too tall. I like cars that are like low and wide, but this car is very narrow and very tall.
It is. Yeah. But I tell you what this car is. It's that guy that looks good, but not the best looking guy in amongst your friends, but he has character.
I'll see.
And he stands out because
see.
he is who he is and he's comfortable.
You mean you're talking about yourself?
No, I'm talking about this car. I'm talking about this car.
You're already putting yourself
No,
onto
no.
this car because you're gonna buy this car.
No,
Yeah, he's actually considering to buy this car.
So let's talk about value now, lah.
For 150,000, would you buy it?
I would buy the base model, really.
Okay.
I know this.
But you lose out on the pedal shifter.
Yeah, but I would never use the pedal shifter.
Dude,
because I
you
would-
remember last week we tested the Golf?
Yeah.
Without a pedal shifter, the car feels crippled.
But okay, the Golf is a car with so much legacy of being
Yeah.
a hot hatch and all that. But this car is not a. This car I would buy.
This car has more legacy.
This guy was a legend, man.
He's a legend.
Okay, but yeah, I would buy this car because of how well it cruises on the highway.
Okay.
I would prefer an Outback, but I cannot afford that. Yeah, still, I think it's not as good as of value as some of the other Japanese offerings.
Like CX-5.
Like the CX-5.
Okay.
Like the CRV.
Okay.
But because of the way it drives, I think it's probably worth that extra money.
Okay.
And because it's distinct, none of your friends will have this car.
And it has a very good image.
Yeah, and it has good image.
Yeah, value-wise, I am seriously considering this car. I have to admit, I like the image of this car. I saw somebody driving this car. Actually, I was very excited about this test drive. I was so excited, I went to Autophiles to check it out yesterday. And I saw somebody driving this car, a lady in her early 40s or late 30s, driving this car. And I was looking at her pass me by in LDP. And I asked myself this question: is she a lawyer? And she could be. Is she an engineer? She could be. And I realized that it's very ubiquitous image that it sends out. And it looks good. And it looks like you know what you're doing. Because you know what? You wouldn't buy a Subaru unless you appreciate certain aspect of driving.
Yes, I agree with both.
And people who are interested in certain aspect of, this thing are people that pays attention to knowledge and information. And I think that's why it lends a relatively professional image.
It's the Saab of the Japanese car.
You're right.
You're right, yeah.
So I like it. I like the image very much. I have to say it's not a very good looking car, but most Subaru has never been good looking. I mean, the look is
most
not...
of them are quite ugly.
You're right. It looks is not their strong trait, but if you judge your partner only by looks, then ugly people in this world wouldn't have been able to find a partner. Two things bug me. One, really, man, aircon at the back.
Yeah.
Why don't have? It's not that hard to make, seriously. The second thing is I felt it doesn't have enough power. It's not fair to judge Subaru on this because all its competitors also, I'm pretty sure, don't have enough power.
Yeah.
But I need a car which is a little bit more immediate than this. I'm used to cars that are a lot more immediate than this. But then again, if you're not looking for those things, this is a very good consideration. I am 60 to 70% convinced on this car.
Like Bo said, to appreciate Subaru, you have to be a certain class of people. You have to understand a few things about cars. You have to be a bit sophisticated. I happen not to be in that group. I respect Subaru and everything, but I would not pay 140,000 for this car. If I'm looking for SUV, I would probably go maybe Toyota Fortuner. I know that's a lot more expensive, but
Yeah, 180 plus 180.
or Ford. I would go for a Ford.
Kuga.
Kuga's a nice car.
I'm reluctant. I mean, I respect, I understand the car. It is a good car, it's a good buy, but I wouldn't pay 140,000 for this. So, yeah.
I have one final thing to say, and this is addressing to Tanchong.
Is this a trap?
No, it's not a threat. It's not
Look
a
into
threat.
the lens if it's a
Yeah,
trap.
I know. It's not a threat, Tanchong. It's not a threat because I don't know your bottom line. You see, I don't want to be pretentious enough to tell you how to run your business. You guys know what you're doing. You've been in the business for so long. But the question I have is this: there are so many fish in the sea. There are so many choices for 150,000 mid-size SUV. Why do you throw another offering and compete at exactly the same point? If you offer the turbo and you can price it at 180 and sweeten the deal, make it sound 179, alright, I would buy it. Because the only complaint I have, actual complaint, is it doesn't have enough power. Really, that's the only complaint. Because the drive and the feel is everything. Everything else you lose to CRV a bit, nobody cares in the long run. The power makes a huge difference. And once you give me a turbo, you're in a different league. Because Camry 2.5 sells at 180,000 and there are 10,000 units on the road running at the moment. Or actually more.
Yeah.
So there is no reason why a 180,000 Forester can't sell a tenth of a Camry. And you can reach the volume of a tenth of a Camry, you made it already.
Come and get it.